Good morning on, what is it, 27th of July. This is a very natural episode. It is not genetically modified in any way. Have you ever heard of genetically modified foods?
Hi. Hi there. Hi
Oh,
there.
yeah. Hi.
Yes, I did. I did. I did. Um, I'm sure I've even eaten it at one point, but yeah. Did you? Have you ever eaten it?
I, you know what I'm thinking is that this might be the cause of some of our problems. I was just, on our cover shot, you can see a watermelon, which I picked from a garden, and it's very unusual because it was not fully formed, so it wasn't completely ripe. But this garden had been abandoned, and there were two or three watermelons there. So my friend picked up one, and I picked up one, and I was so surprised that it had seeds in it because generally at the grocery store, the preferred watermelon that is carried in most high-end grocery stores in general in Dallas is the seedless watermelon. And if you think about a watermelon, okay, the seeds are a little bit inconvenient, but they're part of what makes them a natural watermelon. And uh, I was beginning to, and it was actually very sweet, and it was also very juicy, and it was very, very tasty. And I took a picture of it. And I was just thinking, well, I wonder when GMO foods came out. And I was just glancing back in my memory, and I kept thinking it must have been in the 1980s. Must have been in the 80s because I remember one of my daughters was in this very, I don't know, kind of fancy school that had a lot of money and they were doing actual teaching. But she did a report on genetically modified foods. And I remember at the time I kept thinking that must be some strange thing that's very, it's happening on spaceships or something. I didn't think of it as something being very real. Then she also did a little experiment where you take a Q-tip and she went around the house like swabbing the kitchen and then swabbing the mirror in the bathroom and swabbing the table. And then she would take these samples to school and put them under a microscope. And then she would return home the next day and report that bacteria is all over our house. So this is what I had to grow up with, a child who was a future scientist.
What is what's wrong with seedless watermelons? Are they like a contraceptive or something? I mean, when I eat watermelons, the less seed they have, the better I think they are, because you don't
I
have to
know, because
heat
you've been
them.
brainwashed. No, I'm just
Really?
saying, I'm just saying you are free to eat what you want. Tony Carnes is free to eat what he wants. David Anton, Amos, Austin, Ralphie Boy. We want all of our subscribers to eat all of the junk food they want. I want to eat high sugar snacks. But if you think about it, in the natural cycle of things, there's kind of I'm just speaking metaphorically, there's a mother, then there's a father, and then they make a little baby, and then the baby grows up, and then he finds a wife, and then they make a baby, and all this happens through seeds, and the generation of life is something that's gone on for quite a few years. Like we're here in the year 2023. So watermelons that don't have seeds in them, their DNA has been altered. And that altered DNA is going into your body and mine. So it used to be just in fruits and corn and stuff like that. Because I used to do like pork belly futures and derivatives and some other stuff like that. And I know that there's like a high demand for pork and bacon and also gold. But if they could get more pigs faster, then it's like supply chain. So originally, I remember this little research paper my daughter did. She was just in like, I don't know, she was pretty young, but it was about GMO corn that was being fed to pigs. So, I don't want to stress you out or make you feel nervous or anxious because you're already a little stressed out, nervous, and anxious, also depressed and sad. And also, I have sleep problems and I'm anxious and I worry. And I'm just wondering if all these altered products that are in our food are also altering our body because we eat them and then we go to sleep. We wake up in the morning. I mean, it used to be, it was just in like corn and stuff like that. But I picked up a can of soup the other day, like canned goods, and I usually read the labels. Like I am not real fond of stuff that's produced in China. No offense to China, but the standards in which they, approve stuff is not the same as in the United States. But I picked up this can of soup, it's Progresso vegetarian soup, and Progresso, I've always thought it makes some kind of interesting Italian soups. And I just stared at the label and it said GMO vegetables included. So in what? Since the 1980s to right now, we've gone from like just, getting more corn for pigs to it's everywhere. It's, if you just start reading your labels. I mean, I'm also anxious and I like to find things that make me more anxious because then I believe I have control over my world, but I don't. So in answer to your question, have I ever eaten genetically modified items? Yes, but not willingly.
Yeah, but that is what's called evolution, right? Because we transform our bodies into something else because we eat this genetically modified food. And for instance, I've been, if they ask me, would I be willing to go to Mars? There is no way. Like, there is no way I'll get like a return ticket. I'd say yes anyway. I don't know.
You didn't read the small print.
Let me finish. Let me finish it. Because you can't grow watermelons or you can't grow pigs on Mars. So what is the solution? What would be a solution? Solution would be that genetically modified food, which I gladly eat because it's better than just die of starvation or starve to death. And what if we train ourselves here on Earth to do that up ahead ahead of time? That's my take. Do you think it makes sense?
Well, it makes sense in your world, but I'm just going to say
it is subjective, right? Because the truth is not the truth's out there. Because for you, the truth is one thing. For me, the truth is another thing. But
we're just imagining. We're just sort of imagining and just kind of spinning some ideas here. But let's suppose you were offered. Now, let me just finish before you get excited or turn the episode off. Okay, no, you won't do that. Okay, suppose you were offered a trip to Mars. Okay, just like during the space race.
What if I interrupt you and
No, I know this is very, very important. Like my brain is working and my washing machine is making too much noise. I have got to finish this idea. Okay, so suppose you're offered a trip to Mars, just like the space. What are those people called? Cosmonauts and the space people in the space race. But they have to go through training and they have to do certain things. And basically, there's right now men and women. So now there's some women astronauts and like you're a man and I'm a woman. So like we're still kind of a bit bound by biology. So let's suppose you're going to go, you've signed up, you want to go to Mars because like, you're an adventurer and you want to go up to Mars and you're going to eat genetically modified bacon or whatever. But the small print is, when you're on a space trip, you cannot be busy doing manly things. And when you cannot be thinking about women, you cannot have a woman with you on the trip and and get her out of her spacesuit and mess with her. So you've agreed to have your testicles fried. By that, I mean they're going to put some lasers on your, lower stomach area and zap your testicles to be sure that you're like not messing around up there on Mars. And when you're up on Mars, you cannot look at the Martian girls. You cannot flirt with anybody. There's no coffee up there. But you're now on Mars. Do you still want to go?
Well, when you put it that way, because that's where you run. You understand that? If you know what I mean.
No, I am not wrong. And evolution is stuff that happens naturally. For example, the Chernobyl disaster was not natural. It was a man-made disaster. Just like genetically modified foods are man-made and they are affecting us. So it's true, evolution goes on. Like we came from an agricultural society to an industrial society to a technological society. Now you're going to, to Mars with Tina Fey. I'm saying there is the general concept of evolution, but there's also the biological concept of evolution, of which GMO foods is an interruption in the chain, in the natural chain. Like the Catholic Church teaches that artificial insemination is, no, and that birth control in general, no. And, there's man-made rules, and then there's man-made altering of things in the laboratories. Then there's just the natural evolution.
Do you believe in aliens? Because people, if you believe in aliens, you know that they probe the aliens. I mean, they probe people, and
they did what?
Probe. You know what PROBE means? Like probe humans.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not too into aliens. I'm already busy worried about just the humans around me. But like, I know there's lots of aliens.
If I go to Mars, and if you go to Mars, and if everybody go to Mars, and we like meet aliens, and they start probing us, I mean, what would be the reason?
Why? Okay, I'm going to say that maybe probe means have sex. Like, why do aliens want to have sex with humans?
No, that's not what it means.
No, I'm saying that's when you say the word aliens probe humans.
Yeah, I think they put that thing into you. It's
what
like
thing?
Sex in no way.
It is
like microchip
exactly.
You. If they want you to microchip you and they put that microchip into you.
Okay, microchip. Say the word microchip. Don't say when they put that thing into you. Just stop it. Okay.
So if they microchip you, right? So why would they do it? What would be your reaction?
I'm not going to Mars. I'm not messing with aliens. I have all kinds of people here in Dallas. They have alien watch parties.
I call Houston, right? I call Houston for help. I'm being microchipped, and you imagine that you're like in the ground control. What would you advise? What would advise?
Well, I would say that we have been through COVID. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of people have gotten shots. Many people believe that there's a chip in the shot. We're not really talking about futuristic stuff. I mean, some of these things we're talking about have theories behind them, that there's a kind of an Uber race that is sort of trying to destroy the middle class, and they want like world domination, and that COVID was a manufactured thing in a lab that was produced and purposely put into humans to alter certain populations.
Nobody knows actually. And I think my mission to Mars or Jupiter or Texas, even though it's delayed by COVID, but nobody knows how it's originated or where it originated from. There are many theories, but you can't be sure 100%.
Well,
Uh,
the thing is that for me, the origin of where it came from is something as humans that we like to, you know, spin around in our head. When people start arguing with me about their different theories, I just say, well, you can have your theory. I know people that died, so shut the F up. I'm just saying, I know that it's interesting to think of where it came from. But if you think about it, the very simple photograph that we have of a bowl of watermelon, that bowl of watermelon is such a controversial image because in America, watermelon and picking cotton and the deep South and racial profiling and all these advertisements of Black Americans, chewing on watermelons and spitting seeds and Aunt Jemima. Like, it's a very loaded image, and it seems to me that just something like eating has become, it's controversial. Like, we wonder, well, I wonder how much this costs. Well, I wonder if it's worth my money. Like, should I go to this bakery? Maybe I should go out to my summer house and look at my bees. Like, I mean, do you like to have bees with natural honey?
what do you mean? I actually, I'm having, I'm already having bees, and I have natural honey, and yeah, I mean, if I do, would I still want to have it? Yeah, the answer is
Yeah,
yes.
no, yeah. What I'm saying is, like, some of our subscribers that are new may not know that you have this summer house or your bunker or your camp out place, and you've actually kept bees. And I'm sure that in Moscow or Rome or Paris or Portland or Washington, any place you could go into a grocery store and pick up some honey, and a lot of it is not local. But there is a bee movement in Dallas. It's called Be Kind or Be Aware. I don't know what it is. It's people who keep bees here in East Dallas around the lake area, Lakewood. And supposedly, if you use honey from your local area, it helps to cut down on allergies and it cuts down on infections. So when you have a kid that has a cough or a cold, if you give them a couple spoons of local honey, it really helps. And I've actually done that myself. Like, locally produced honey is a little more expensive than something that's flown in from, Detroit or flown in from, you know, Germany or Manhattan. I don't know. Like, locally produced honey is supposed to be really, really healthy.
Sitting here and talking about this with you, I want to tell you what sucks about bees, because maybe some of our listeners just, maybe they already have bees, but maybe keep bees, maybe they don't. But anyway, the thing that bugs me about having bees, about keeping bees, is swarm control. Because I'm struggling to keep them, like every spring, early summer, they tend to escape, even though you give them everything they want. It's like women, you give her everything you want, but still she wanna what's
Yeah,
that called? The branch swinging. What's that? I don't know. There is an expression, I don't remember.
that's evolution there. That's natural evolution.
Yeah, because otherwise there wouldn't be any bees on Earth if they stayed with you, because they wouldn't be. The swarm is basically the new family. That's how they reproduce.
Oh, really?
But that's not helping. Yeah, because the swarm just goes away and starts a new life. Like, if I go to Mars and start a new life, that'd be the equivalent of what bees do, only they don't go to Mars.
Only, like, leave your life in Moscow and you'd leave your desk and you'd leave your job, you'd leave
I
your
leave
car.
Earth, basically. I leave Earth, which not that I'm looking forward to it, but you see my point?
No, it's very, very interesting. Also in Dallas, there are areas where, not all areas, but some parts of Dallas are zoned such that you can keep bees, you can keep chickens. So people will have in backyard some chickens. They'll have some tomato plants, some eggplants. They'll maybe have some beehives. And there's even some small schools, Montessori schools, that are on wooded property here in East Dallas. And the children learn how to, maybe they're not keeping bees, but they learn about, vegetables, and they learn about ducks, and they learn about birds and hummingbird feeders. And learning about the goodness of the natural world, I think is, I think that's good. And like, I didn't know that about the swarm. I thought
I see your points, but let me chip in here, because men, I'm talking about men, not humans, just men, opposite of female. We forget how to build barns. We don't build barns anymore, because last time I took hammer in my hand, I thought, I saw getting used to computers. I didn't know what to do with it. And I thought, I'm not alone, because half of the population don't know how to build a house these days. And remember, like 50 years ago, everybody knew. And your father knew, and your granddad knew.
No, I remember that long, when I was a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, we lived up in, I guess my father was working at the Pentagon, so we were in Annandale, Virginia, and he would drive into the Pentagon to work. But we had a 2-story house, and in the basement he had a woodworking shop, and he also had some kind of this press. I don't even know what it was, but I would go down there with some beets, and I always thought it was good to make beet juice, and I would like put a big old beet in this thing and like. But anyhow, yeah, even within one generation, we've lost that skill. Yeah. Exactly.
My point exactly. So when I go to my fallout shelter, as I like to call it, because it's just a dacha, somehow you know what that means, because the word became international, and I think we don't build timbered buildings any longer. At least because we live in the cities, you don't have to do anything except pay the bills.
Yeah, and a couple episodes ago, I think we were talking about Eastern Turkey had huge earthquakes, and there were people that were then suing the people who built the buildings because the compliance control people went ahead and gave the permits to the builders when they knew they were using substandard materials, whereas certain kinds of materials would be more expensive, but the builders went with something cheaper. But yeah, I think the idea of a summer house is popular in the United States. A little summer house, a place to get away. It could be a little house on a lake, or it could be a beach house. So the idea of getting away from the city is it's very, very widespread.
Yeah. Also, if you're living in the woods, you understand that you need a woman, because if you're in a city, like, the lonelier you are, the better, the easier it is for you to go through all these hardships. But once you're like in the wilderness, you understand that there is no way you can make it for winter, especially if you have kids, or I don't know, like there is segregation of duties, like every minute, and the life gets back to normal. And maybe I'm talking about some kind of conspiracy here, because we've been.
No. It's true. I have looked back into some family research and family history, and I'm originally from San Antonio, and I read back, on my mother's side of the family, the De Los Santos Coy, this Hispanic side of the family, Hernandez, De Los Santos Coy, Salinas, they came from ranching families. The big ranches had ranch hands, which meant men who are working the cattle. So they had to live in these like dormitories. And then they had, cooks who had to cook for the whole crew. They call that maybe like a chuck wagon cook. Then they had maids and helpers that would help with the hacienda, which is the main house. And then there were like children's, maybe there would be a school teacher. So, and then if it was a big enough ranch, like, if it was big enough ranch, they would have their own cemetery. So it was a big piece of land. And generally speaking, the duties were segregated. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, there are men cooks that are great, and there are women that can ride horses. But I just know that some of these pieces of property are beautiful. And I just think how we went in 2, 3, 4 generations from people living in these big ranches they had no air conditioning, but they had stucco houses and big porches and natural wells where they draw the water. We've gone in several generations to me living in an apartment where bugs are coming inside, the air conditioning barely works. My brother lives in Austin, another brother's in San Antonio, someone's out in New Mexico. Like, I don't know if that's progress or not. I mean, think about your own personal family of origin in 2, 3 generations. Have they moved around a lot? Are they split up in different places?
No. I think what we've been through for the past 50 years is you can't compare it with anything that the humanity had for the past 3,000 years or something, because so many things happened. Imagine that my granddad just rode a horse, and now we built each other, or we bombed each other with nukes, and we built to a moon. We've been to moon just for the last 50 years. And we've all this. I remember when I was at school, I fantasized about the thing that I could watch when I could watch, that would allow me to watch TV while I'm on the go. Exactly. Or call somebody who's like not in another city or stuff. Everything came true. That was just me, right?
And some of our subscribers who maybe have might be a little bit older might remember these 2 television shows. When these 2 television shows came on, they were in black and white. One was called The Flintstones, which was kind of a little comedy show, cartoon show about a prehistoric family and a little dinosaur, a husband and wife and their kids and their little dinosaur friends. And the other one was called The Jetsons, and that was set kind of in the future. And there were like flying cars, and there was something that kind of looked like a television. You could push buttons. And so the Flintstones, about prehistoric times, and the Jetsons, I don't know if it was created in the 50s or the 60s, but everything in those shows has come true within my lifetime. Like right now, there are flying cars, there's plug-in scooters, things that used to be considered really far out there, like, for example, some women, they don't want to be married. They don't want to be around men. They just want to have a baby. So they just go to the sperm bank and like sign up, go through the roster and pick out something like, I want him to have blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay, I'll take, number 104. And then there's even, surrogate, mothers, like a couple could decide they don't want to mess with pregnancy, so let's just implant that in someone else and just give us the baby when it's done because we're busy working. And that's a wonderful opportunity for 2 women to have a baby, or 2 guys. And 10, 12, 20 years ago, that would be something like really strange. But now it's very common for
exactly
women not to marry. They don't even want to marry. Like, why would they want to marry and pick up some guy's socks? They're busy working and they want to travel and they want to go to the moon, or they want to go to Lake Tahoe. And
I don't know why. I keep hearing about the socks thing, which I don't understand. Where did that come from? I don't know it, but actually, no, nobody ever. Like I've never let anyone pick my socks up. But anyway, you mentioned that 20 years ago that would be not imaginable, would be unimaginable. I agree. And imagine what would be like 100 years ago or 150. I've watched that video, Terence McKenna. Yeah, that was, I think he was an American, Terence McKenna. And he said that time is speeding up, because imagine what we had like for the past 10,000 years. What happened more? What happened in the past 100 years, or or for the past million years, for instance. And that's maybe just our perception of time, which is speeding up, not the time itself. But I'm
No,
absolutely sure that
no,
for the past 100 years, we've lived through like way more things than all the I don't know,
exactly. And
previous generations
also,
or 2 million.
the other thing is like, there's always been wars. There's always been earthquakes. There's always been, polar bears dying. But we're constantly bombarded with news. And even I don't have I have a television, but I don't watch it very much. I have a radio. Do I have a radio? I don't even know if I have a radio. It's on my phone. But I'm saying in the past 5 years, like I think, I don't know, like we're kind of about 1 year out of the pandemic, sort of. And then the pandemic was 2 years. And there was even 1 year before the pandemic that some people said the pandemic had already started. So the past 4 or 5 years, I think, has disrupted family life. It's disrupted jobs. It's disrupted the food chain. It's disrupted. I mean, if you can't leave your house to go buy groceries and then the stores don't know how much to order, and then you're wearing masks to go in to order peanuts or pistachios, like this looks like a crazy science fiction movie, but it's not. It's something that both you and I and our subscribers have experienced, whether or not they believe it or not. I was wearing plastic gloves to pick up the handle to put gas in my car, like just to touch the handle of a gas tank. Like, are you touching handles again, opening doors and pushing buttons?
Actually, I've never paid much attention to these precautions. I've basically I tried not to wear mask when it was possible, because everybody's just looked at it like, okay, if they want me to, I'll make like them believe that I wear a mask or something like that. I don't know what the COVID was. Absolutely sure that was not just a conspiracy. There was such a virus. But you said that a while ago. I saw that TV show, or maybe not TV news broadcast from Canada about chain food disruption. Yeah, that wasn't pandemic, I think, on BBC or something.
Say that a little bit slower. Chain. What is it again? Say it a little slower.
Food chain disruption.
Yeah,
Sorry,
right.
You mentioned that.
Yeah, no, yeah, and some people have blamed it on like ships not being able to come out of the Ukraine, but like all over the world, there's all kinds of problems that have disrupted it. Our friend Jaredin, who is a kind of a philosopher trucker, to go into California, you had to have certain papers just to go into California. They wouldn't let the truckers come in. Or he was trying to go up to Canada, and they had some new rules where the trucks couldn't go into Canada. So here he was, a good, hardworking American, full of a truck full of, could have been Starbucks coffee cups. It could have been fertilizer. It could have been John Deere tractors. Here he was with his load of whatever he was carrying, and he would get to a certain border or a certain place, and if he didn't have the right paper, they just send him back. And then if he can't deliver it, he doesn't get paid. Or I told the story that he told me about, he tried to go to a truck stop and the signs were up, no truckers, and go to the window, but the truck wouldn't fit under the drive-through window. Like, these were things that would make anybody crazy. And by crazy, I mean frustrated and just wondering what the heck is going on.
Yeah, it's been almost 3 years since you and I, since we've been in therapy, and I think we're in a better place than when we started that trauma therapy channel.
I agree, because we talked about how to meditate, we talked about how to go to sleep, we talked about radios, we talked about philosophy, we talked about, just going to sleep. Since many of us were kind of in isolation, I think you said you were working from home or your family was here or there or wherever they were. I wasn't interacting with people, the restaurants, the bars, the clubs, the museums, the churches, synagogues, everything was closed. So what are you going to do all day? A lot of people were just online. And some of my friends through the MeWe, kind of like Facebook, MeWe, we kept up with each other. We said, "Hey, what are you having for breakfast?" Or like, "What's the weather like?" And just that social interaction really kind of at least helped me get through it. And I don't know, you gave me some advice once, like, "Well, why don't you sleep at the other end of the bed?" What was that? Don't put your head at the head of the bed, turn it around and change the pillows. And how was that going to help me? But it did. It was weird. It was different.
I don't remember. I agree that we tried to talk about many stuff about your week, about my week, or some other basic stuff about our lives as a way to try and ease ourselves out yeah, and we're doing well, I think. At least you are.
Yeah, I think so too. We've also talked about exercise and movement, and you were saying, well, sometimes even when you don't feel like it, now that the gyms and the exercise places are open, just going to lift weights or going to ride the bicycle or doing the treadmill. I know that when the gym, the YMCA, it's called Young Men's Christian Association. It started, I think, up in New York, but now they're all over the United States. And some of them are very fancy and some of them are kind of old and local. But, just going to the gym again was great because the one that's near my house has like huge plate glass windows and you can see, birds and trees and flowers. And as the seasons change, you can see snow and, just getting out to be amongst people, was really, really great. And I don't know, like we could go to the grocery store again. Like we seemed like at the beginning of the pandemic, signs were up that said like, don't touch the fruits. Like you're not supposed to touch the bananas or the mangoes or the tomatoes. You're supposed to just choose one or two, put it in your basket and move on. And they had, I don't want to say armed guards, but what I'm saying at this one grocery store I went to, there were signs up that said, please choose carefully and quickly and move on. And it was such a weird feeling because I've told this story before. I was there looking at some pita bread or raisin bread or something. And there was a, kind of maybe a middle-aged mother and her son who was, 17, 18. And I noticed they had picked up a couple packages of raisin bread and they put them back on the shelf. Then I was thinking, gosh, it's a good thing I saw that because I almost picked that up. Then I realized that's ridiculous. These are just regular middle-class people, and I'm a regular middle-class person just trying to buy raisin bread. And I was having an anxiety attack about that. So now that we're kind of coming out of the pandemic, and we're starting to feel a little bit better, I'm starting to see news that the pandemic's not over. Have you seen news about that?
Yeah, now and then, but I don't believe news any longer.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I think we just have to make our minds up. Like, you go to your summer house, you talk to your bees, I drive around the lake. I went ahead and just picked up a watermelon that was growing on the side of this fence. Was it stealing? No, it was just a watermelon that was in the back of the school area that goes to the community garden, and the school was not in session, and it was in this kind of back area. I just happened to be driving along in my car, and I just saw these watermelons, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to take it home. And it looked so strange because it was not perfectly shaped. And I'm used to perfectly shaped watermelons because that's how they are in the stores. And just seeing a natural watermelon growing on a vine, it was something kind of special and different. And then I began to feel, wow, that's pretty zany. That's pretty zany when you think that a watermelon growing on a vine is something unusual and different, but it is.
Okay, I'm guessing I'm back to that place I'm usually in, like when I said and upset, and just to stay here a little bit longer. Why don't we call it a day and wrap it all up?
That sounds like a good idea. And I hope that our listeners will enjoy some nice food today. Maybe look at their food labels, maybe go out and buy some natural wild donuts. There's all these, responsibly, organically, naturally. We're kind of in overkill with these words, but today's episode of Protroma Therapy was brought to you by the Protroma Therapists.
Pfizer.
Bye for now.